Before we begin the meeting, we ask that everybody silence your cell phones. The Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustee meeting is an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, audience members may address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have any printed materials you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to the board secretary, Jane Kaiser, or to me, and we will provide them to the board. We also ask the members of the audience be respectful of others and remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone's able to hear the proceedings. For your convenience, microphones have been provided on both sides of the boardroom. Please speak directly into the microphones if you're asked to answer a question or address the board during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Ontiveros. The time is 6:02 p.m., and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum. The meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted for the time and manner required by law. Please stand and join us for the pledges of allegiance, and remain standing for a silent invocation.
Honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing for a silent invocation. You may be seated.
And arms. Or arms.
Thank you. We will begin this evening with recognitions.
Thank you, Madam President. If the board would join me in front of the dais, we have many students and staff to recognize for their outstanding achievements.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. We do have an outstanding number of students this evening with us, so they're going to be coming in from the door. Students, when I call your name, you'll come forward. Stacy will assist you, but before we invite them in, I'd like to first introduce and recognize our students from Marshall High School. We have juniors Lorelai Ralaca and Maribel Turribiartes. If you would please stand again. They were selected to lead the pledges of allegiance. They are both recipients of National Air Force JROTC Awards. They are both graduates of the Prairie View A&M Air Force JROTC Leadership School and Cadet Training Academy. Next year, Lorelei will be the Corps Commander, and Maribel will be her Vice Commander. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you for coming. For the next part of the presentation, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Madden and Dexter McCoy for the Student Leadership Program recognition.
Board President Tassan, members of the board, Dr. Dupree. Tonight we are proud to recognize the students who formed the junior level service cohort of the Student Leadership 101 program. The purpose of the Student Leadership 101 program is to develop students as leaders by providing experiences with various community leaders. This program is a priority of the Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees as they engage the community and seek to grow leaders at all levels. The board sponsors this program by providing junior and senior level students from all Fort Bend ISD high schools with opportunities to develop and demonstrate their leadership skills while at the same time being involved in volunteer service. The board is represented at each meeting of the Leadership 101 cohort, sharing their experiences and engaging our students. The board has helped these students become partners for positive change in Fort Bend ISD and Fort Bend County. This year, these talented and committed students have traveled throughout Fort Bend County, meeting the people who lead and shape the future of our community. This cohort even made a trip to Austin in February to visit with state representatives. Through these unique experiences, these students have had the opportunity to explore and learn about themselves as leaders and have impacted their district, campuses, and communities during their journey as leaders this year. This cohort will move into Leadership 102 next year, where they will interact with and support nonprofit agencies through community service. Please help us recognize and congratulate the Student Leadership 101 cohort. From Austin High School, Brian Faskey. Tyra James. Oyen Sholaya. From Bush High School, unable to attend tonight, Genevia Manono. Ruben Monterosa. Beatriz Socorro Fuentes. From Clements High School, Yusuf Jassar, Joel Koshi, and Mary Kate Ryan. Representing Dulles High School, Anisha Matthew, Ali Nakvi, who could not make it this evening, and Abigail Sackett. From Elkins High School, Jordan Jacobson, who could not be here this evening, Rendon Reinhardt, and Denver Rose. Representing Hightower High School, Samuel Bello, Naya Harris, Justin Lee, who could not make it this evening, and Vivian Nguyen. Representing Kempner High School, Sanjana John, Vishal Nagrani, and Vivian Tran. Representing Marshall High School, Camille Caldwell, Janae Harris, and Derek Stewart. Cohort members from Ridge Point High School, Dia Bolton, who was unable to make it this evening, Sora Entiga Deku, and Alexander Vargas. Representing Travis High School, Anushka Abedin, Deepa Elangovan, and Deja White. Representing Willow Ridge High School, Jacqueline Alfaro, Amani Durant, and Tyrion Spurs. This cohort has done incredible things this year, and we're looking forward to some more incredible things as they move into Leadership 102. We thank you for your support, parents and administrators that are here as well to help us celebrate these students. Thank you very much. I turn the program back over to Ms. Sofer.
Very good. Thank you so much. Congratulations, students, and thank you for being here. We will go ahead and continue with our recognition, and with our next group of students, they'll come in and also shake hands with the board. And we're going to start with Bush NJROTC, who competed in the 2017 National Drill and Athletics Championship. For team awards, second place for the color guard team and the unarmed drill team mastered first place. Representing this team are Mark Davis, Battalion Chaplain, Xavier Stevens, Battalion Training Officer, Ashley Chala, Executive Officer, Carla Laredo Ponce, Operations Officer, Natalie Martinez, Command Master Chief Petty Officer, and Master Sergeant Manning. Congratulations, students. Next, we have a couple of outstanding groups from Destination Imagination, which is a competition where students learn the creative process and empowered with the skills needed to succeed in the ever-changing world. We've got two teams here this evening. They both qualified for the Global Finals Tournament. We have Cornerstone Maximatics and Sienna Crossing Spectacular Creators. Come on in. With all their bling, we have the Maxmatics, their 5th grade team, and we're going to go ahead and introduce them. Shikar Joshi. Congratulations. Hareka Spindra. Sharvez Surej. Sanjana Matal. Sachi Jain. Suhani Shah. Sharvez Argwal. And we have a team manager here, Ms. Benna Hemkar. Congratulations, Maxmatics. You always know when they're coming. And a special thanks to our volunteers. Next, I'd like to invite the Spectacular Creators, and this is our 3rd grade team. If you guys want to come on in. Spectacular Creators. We have Chase Kalmus, Caitlin Lee, Gracie Zhang. I don't know if Gracie was able to make it. We'll give her a round of applause. We have Conlin Smith and Susan Bradley. Congratulations, Spectacular Creators. Great representation from Fort Bend ISD at Destination Imagination. Next, we're going to move on to Clements High School. We have 2 amazing art students that I'd like to introduce you to this evening. We have Andy Way, who won 1st place grand champion, and Anton Zoe, who won 2nd place reserve grand champion with their artwork at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Art Contest. These very talented young men each created a sizable scholarship opportunity for themselves by winning with their art. And we'd like to recognize their teacher, Ms. Donna Reddy. Thank you for representing Fort Bend ISD. Next, from Quail Valley, the Gifted and Talented Academy students who won 1st place in the group website category at the Texas National History Day competition, and this group advanced to the National History Day contest. So we're going to go ahead and invite them in. We have some outstanding 8th graders. We're going to start with Jefferson Yu. We also have Emery Liu. Aditya Rowe, Sanidya Desai, and they're awesome teachers and coaches. We have Larry Ramiro, Nanette Van Kampen, and Michelle Mangum. Congratulations and great job. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to Bush High School Theater Program. Okay, and they placed 2nd in the UIL one-act play for the state finals. They performed scenes from Ruined, Bush High School Theater. And I'd also like to announce that Belange Chimlez won Best Actress Award and captured a Samuel French Award for overall best performance. Congratulations to her. And I'd also like to introduce some other cast members that are here with us this evening. We have Judith Aguilo. We have Peyton Oriaki, Amani Rhodes, Jayla Washington, Yusuf Dixon, Simpson Arari, and our directors were Mark Fowler, Steve Carpenter, and Destiny Miller. Thank you, Bush High School, and congratulations on your great achievement at state. Next, I'd like to invite Carolyn Van Diver, our orchestra director at Austin High School. She's been selected to receive the Houston Symphony's 2017 School Bell Award for Lifetime Achievement. She was recently honored on stage at the Houston Symphony Orchestra Salute to Educators concert at Jones Hall. Congratulations. And if she would be so kind to stand back up and join us, I'd like to invite Mr. James Drew also to come up so we could recognize Dr. Dupree. Dr. Dupree has been designated the TMEA Distinguished Administrator by the Texas Music Educators on behalf of the TMEA Association Executive Board, with more than 11,000 TMEA members statewide. The TMEA Executive Board created this distinction to honor upper-level school administrators who have been instrumental in preserving quality music education programs on their campuses and their districts. Dr. Dupree was nominated by Ms. Van Diver. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Wait. And I'd also like to recognize, we've got a couple of people here in the audience today. We've done some recognition, but we're just so proud of Fort Bend ISD and our showing at the 16th Annual HEB Excellence in Education Awards. We will honor the board at an upcoming meeting in June, but we do want to recognize Ms. Julie Diaz of Travis High School, who received the School Principal Secondary Award. And Mr. Richard Embrick couldn't be with us this evening, but he received the Rising Star Secondary Award, so let's give him a round of applause. Congratulations, Ms. Diaz. Thank you for representing Fort Bend. And at this time, I'd like to turn the program over back to Dr. Dupree.
So it's that time of year where we recognize our board president. For a year of service, board elections were held a week ago. Tonight, the board will be swearing in those who were re-elected, 3 incumbents, and that is a big deal. And we're very proud of all 3 of our incumbents. But tonight, we're proud of Kristen Tossan, who has served as president for the last year. Thank you for your partnership and your leadership. And now I get to give you a real gavel with your name on it.
And this concludes our recognition for the evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and since I'm up here and I am the board president, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege and say thank you to Dr. Dupree, and thank you to my fellow board members who have supported me quite a bit this last year. I am very proud and honored to be part of this board, but more proud and honored to have been able to be the board president this last year. It's a lot of work, but it is really a privilege, and it was certainly a privilege last week when we got to bring home the big prize. So I want to thank each and every one of my fellow board members for all of their support and for building what I believe is a very strong team, the strongest in the state of Texas, in my opinion. And to Dr. Dupree for rounding out our team of 8, and to all of the executive team that sits out every day in front of us, and for all of your hard work, for all the 74,000 students that we serve. It's not one of us, it's all of us. So thank you all very much. We will now move on to the next item, which are our audience items. And we have 3 people signed up to speak. First up is Maria Pedroza.
I didn't know it was going to be that quick.
Oh. So, Ms. Pedroza, we need to, first of all, make sure your mic is on, and Officer Ontiveros will do that for you.
Okay.
You will have 3 minutes to speak. And Ms. Helliger, our board secretary, will keep the time for you, and she will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good evening to the Board of Trustees. I'm here, my name is Maria Pedroza, and I'm here to ask you to please implement in the elementary school level summer school programs. My child is a speech impairment. He started when he was in kindergarten. He didn't speak until he was 5, and now he's behind in all subjects. And there's no program available for him to go to summer school within the district. I strongly believe that the district does not meet my child's educational needs, and there has to be something that needs to be done in order for us to have an elementary summer school program that will help all the children that are either behind on their subjects or that need that extra help over the summer.
Thank you, Ms. Pedroza. We appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you very much for
we can
everyone's
ask
support.
someone to speak with you after.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is it Eliza Ellisor? Elise Ellisor.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. You'll have 3 minutes, and Ms. Helliger will let you know when you have 30 seconds
Okay.
left. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Elise Ellisor, and I'm a parent of a student that was just up here recognized from the George Bush High School ROTC program. I'm a teacher coach in another school district. I've been teaching 30 years. I cannot even begin to brag. I'm about to cry. The leadership at that school under Dr. Creer. I come from a rough area in Mission Bend, so I know what they're dealing with at that school. But she has taken over that school as soon as my son was a freshman. My son was in middle school, did not like school. I hate to say that as a teacher, but he just didn't like it. I don't know what his reason was, but when he went over to Bush High School, not only that, he was obese. He was about 180 pounds at the 7th grade level. When he joined Bush High School, he joined the ROTC program to get out of PE. And as a coach myself, I wasn't very happy, needless to say. But anyway, what I want to say is those instructors took over, and they promised me when I walked in those doors. I was a little nervous about that school in the area, but oh my gosh, I love that school. I'm very active in it. Dr. Creer has done an awesome job, and I know she can't brag on herself. I've tried for 4 years. I've made phone calls after phone calls here, and probably my biggest mistake was not putting it in writing because I wanted y'all to know sooner. My son's graduating in two weeks, but she's done a marvelous job, her and her staff. The ROTC program, the commander that left, Chief, Master Sergeant, they've done wonders with my son. He loves school. He eats and breathes the ROTC program. He's already lost like 11 inches in his waist alone just from the activity that they've done. But if it wasn't for those men, I can't even begin to tell you what they've done for those students there at Bush High School. And I'm about to cry because those men have made so many wonders for those students there at Bush High School. I know we lost Commander, and my biggest fear is losing Master Sergeant and the others, because when I travel with my Bush High School shirt on, which I do to many places, people know those men.
I mean, I went to Florida, I drove to Florida to watch them, and everybody's after that master sergeant because he's so good. And I appreciate the job y'all have done this is my only son, my only child, and I hate that I'm not going to have another child in Fort Bend ISD because I love this district. Even though I teach in another school district, I moved here for the district.
30 seconds.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Keep going, 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I just want y'all to know, please recognize them personally, if you don't mind. But I do appreciate y'all recognize them tonight, and I thank y'all for all that y'all do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Next up, Rodrigo Carrion.
Good evening, board. My name is Rodrigo Carrion, Fresno resident, and just like to come and address the board. It would be more helpful not only for principals to be certified and trained to register voters, no, but teachers. How about our government teachers? At least our government teachers in high school should be certified and trained. And I talked to the election department, Fort Bend election department, and they're willing to come and train our teachers and get them certified to help our students and make sure they're they get their voter registration cards turned in and send in, and make it easier for the principal, because I know the principals are too busy to take the time or spend the time with our students and registering them or helping them answer questions and all that. But our teachers are there, so by them being certified and trained, it only take 1 hour. 1 hour. The Fort Bend election department came to our party meeting, and with 1 hour, certified about 40 or 50 people at the same time. 1 hour. How much is that? How much is that for a teacher to lose? And I don't think that's much time for them to lose. And that'd be very much helpful for all our high schools and students to increase our strengthen our First Amendment and turnout of leadership. And by them being skilled and certified and trained. That's the best way to get our students involved for their future leadership to come. Their voice is their future. Without a voice, well, they ain't gonna have a future. So I depend on this to be addressed and be done, and for the future, help improve our voter turnouts. 3%, it says not much of education learning. And what are they learning, what are they knowing about what's going on? Because I know that a lot of things is going on, not only here, but other areas. And look at Pearland High School. Look at it. They already got their first high school senior board trustee elected. Which that's pretty good to see, and for their own students, for the minds to open up for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrion. We appreciate you being here. Next up on our agenda are the information items, and first will be our vision and planning update. Dr.
Yes,
Dupree.
ma'am. This is going to be a combo between our board chair of the Vision and Planning Committee, Mrs. Grail James, and Beth Martinez. So I'll turn it over to Grail.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dupree. So as I reported in special reports last week, the Vision and Planning Committee has been hard at work over the last 8 months. And we've been using this process that's up on the screen in front of you, and you have a handout of this PowerPoint slide in front of you. And you can see those boxes there that we described as our milestones. So the first box is the mission, vision, core beliefs, and profile of a graduate, which is basically those items we've been working on this year, and they're all housed in policy AE local, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. We've completed the visionary needs assessment, as you know. We reviewed it. We used it for our board team building in March, and now we are in the phase of looking at the board developed goals. So we're in the second box right now, and those board developed goals are going to come to us as a board for approval next month, and they're in one of your handouts here, but I wanted to bring them to your attention now so that you'd have a really good chance to look at them over the next few months, or next few weeks, excuse me. So these goals are strategic long-term goals, and we kind of thought about it in the 5 to 8 year kind of time horizon. So it's not something that's going to be completed in 1 year, and maybe not even in 3 years, but looking out several years to accomplish these goals. So I want you to look at them really carefully, because once we approve them, the administration is going to work on those last two boxes that are up there. Number one is turning them into SMART goals, and then number two is developing a district action plan, and really yearly action plans, so that we can accomplish these long-term goals. There's some things that have to happen in that process, and some of it has to do with a district needs assessment. That means the administration looking really carefully at what we're doing, getting community input, looking at our individual schools and feeder patterns to understand what our needs are, because they may vary across the district, and then developing the action plans to accomplish the goals. So I'm pointing out the process up there, because you know me, I'm kind of a process person, but I want you to know what we've gone through and where we are right now. I'm going to point out next the documents that you have in front of you, at the risk of usurping Mrs. Martinez's part of the presentation. But there's a couple of things that I really want to point out to the board that are particularly important to me. So, as I mentioned, policy AE local. This is where our mission, vision, core beliefs, and the profile of a graduate are housed in our educational philosophy policy. I want to point out that the committee is suggesting a revision to the vision statement, and basically focusing it on starting with the end in mind. We've discussed the profile of a graduate. What are we trying to do in Fort Bend ISD? And that is to produce graduates that have the attributes of a profile of a graduate. So we're recommending that change to our vision statement. And I just, that's kind of an important thing. The next thing I want to point out, well, also is the profile of a graduate will be housed in this policy, or that's what we're suggesting. So that's on page 2. The other policy that's in your packet for looking at over the next few weeks is policy EA local. This is a theory of action. And in the past, when the board approved this a couple of years ago, right at the time that, close to the time that Dr. Dupree first came to work here, we had a very focused theory of action, which was very focused on managed curriculum, or we called it managed instruction at that time. The committee, the Vision Planning Committee, felt we were ready to sort of expand our focus, and we wanted to present to the board for consideration a organizational level theory of action. In other words, guidance to the administration or guidance to management on how we expected them to meet our goals and what things we wanted them to do. And so that's what this document has been revised to cover. And it references AE local, and it references also our district strategic planning policy. But this is a rework of something that we had before. So I particularly want to point that out to those who've been around a while. And Dave, you asked me the other day about professional development, and there's a sentence about that in the last paragraph of this policy, which is just a general purpose statement on the professional development. And then the third document that you have in front of you is the goals. These are draft goals. And I will, I don't know, Mrs. Martinez, now you're sitting down, I don't know if you want to say anything about them, except that Kristen and Addie and I worked independently after our team building, came up with some ideas, and then got together, and it was remarkably eerie how much overlap there was in what we had worked on and how it all kind of came together. So The administration helped us a lot to format it all up into our goals and objectives format that we've been using before. And so this is the document that you have in front of you. This is a draft, and we would welcome, we're not, obviously you haven't really prepared, but if you have comments, or if we certainly want to have a discussion about this in June so that you can be really on board with this effort. I think that's our goal, is we all as a group need to be on board and very comfortable with these goals and objectives, because they're going to drive our work, as I said, for the next 5 to 8 years. So Mrs. Martinez, would you like to give your part of the presentation now, or have I spoken at all?
You did a very nice job of delivering
I
the
apologize
presentation and the
for,
information. No, quite nicely done, and far better than I could have done it. I do want to add just briefly our appreciation for the work that the Vision and Planning Committee board members have contributed to this project and to this very important work in our district. And you explain it with such grace and such ease, but all of us know the hard work, time, and effort and deep thought that has gone into this process on the behalf of all of the board members. And through the visionary needs assessment review, and through the team building of the board, and through all the synthesizing of all of the information provided by stakeholders earlier this year to develop the profile of a graduate, it's quite significant. So I would just add that to appreciate the work that you've done.
All right, and then can I keep going?
Go ahead.
Then one additional thing that everyone has at their place.
That's 3 minutes. You get 5 slides.
Oh, I
No,
don't.
go ahead. Go ahead. You're doing great.
Is a nice graphic that Becky Walker and communications team put together, and this has got some of this information, or most of it, I guess, on there, and it's a graphic to sort of depict, for those who are more visual learners, to help depict basically how we envision the Fort Bend ISD roadmap to success. So just a little description there. We've got the mission at the very beginning. That sets a tone for everything we're doing. The road is paved with the curriculum and leadership development, because we discussed those as being foundational to everything that we do in Fort Bend ISD. And then if you'll scroll to the bottom half of the end is the vision. Which is the students will graduate with the attributes of the profile of a graduate. So there's a lot of detail in there, and you can study it and ponder it and make suggestions, but this is just to help us visualize what we're trying to do as an organization over the next 5 to 10 years. So thank you very much to the communications team so far for putting that together. Anything else you'd like to add on that, Mrs. Martinez?
No, thank you.
I think my 3 minutes are up.
Thank you, Mrs. James and Mrs. Martinez. We appreciate you guys putting that together for us this evening. And I particularly appreciate the graphic, because I am very visual, and I love how this is laid out. And I'm interested in hearing from the other board members, if not now, at least at the next board meeting. But right now, Addie, did you want to add anything as a committee member?
No, not at this time. I mean, I just think, once again, thank you all for including me in this effort and working collaboratively together. I think, I'm also a visual learner. I'm excited about the progress that we have made on this, our roadmap to success, and I'm looking forward to having conversations with the other board members to see, make sure that we're all on the right road, we're all getting to the same, destination.
Amen.
So, interested to have that conversation.
Mr. Rosenthal, did you have a question or a comment or a crack?
Well, being a visual person myself, I noticed that, and you talking about being on the right side of the road or something like that, I noticed that if you look at the bus is on the right side of the road, then it's on the left side of the road, then it's on the right side of the road, then it's on the left side of the road. I was
What does
wondering
that
if
say
there's
about
any
Fort Bend
significance to
ISD
that.
transportation?
There is a significance to that. That means that we're picking up everybody from all around this county to make sure they all
Regardless
become.
of what side of the road they're
Yeah,
on.
It's a back view and a
absolutely.
front view.
Yeah.
I don't think
Gotta
that's
pick
true,
one on the right
Charles.
side of the street?
That's one way to explain it. That was it? Okay. Anybody else?
I wanted
Mr.
to say
Burdine?
something. I wanted to thank Ms. Hellier, Ms. James, and President Tossan, and of course Beth Martinez, admin and communications. In my opinion, one of the reasons why we're successful as a team is because we have leaders that stand up and spend time creating our future vision, and I think it's crucial to our future success. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. I'm very excited about this, and we will take this up again next month for a vote. And moving on now to our next information item, the Case Accountability System Development Update. Dr. Dupree.
Yes, ma'am. The CASE, which stands for Community and Student Engagement Accountability System, is a big part of the new accountability system with the state. There's been some changes in the last year, and Megan Evans has done a great job of leading us in that direction. So she and Beth are going to do an update this evening about where we are in relationship to the CASE accountability system. Beth?
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Yes, the case has been in place since the 2013-14 school year, and tonight Dr. Evans is going to share with you information regarding the revision and the development of the case accountability system in Fort Bend. She's going to explain to you how this work has been guided by the board-developed goals and how it is tightly aligned to the Fort Bend ISD profile of a graduate. The development of the case accountability system is our first step toward local accountability, quite frankly. And Dr. Evans will provide some background information for you. She will share with you the process for revising and developing the case accountability system, and she'll also talk with you about those indicators that we've identified at a district and campus level. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Evans.
All right, good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Dupree. Like Beth mentioned tonight, I'm going to provide a little bit of discussion behind the 2018 Case Accountability System, just to make a note that it currently is in draft stages and is a working document. I'm going to share a little bit about the development of where we got to where we are beginning in January, and also some key next steps for district and campus stakeholders. So what I'd like to start with first is the background of case accountability. So beginning in 2013 with House Bill 5, that House bill included a local evaluation requirement that was referred to as the community engagement component. So the intent behind this community engagement component that was developed in the House bill and approved was to allow the districts the opportunity to highlight areas that districts are being successful and we are excelling, but also to provide an opportunity for districts to showcase areas that we need improvement and to be able to goal set for things that we as a district and our community value. So with that being said, we had a committee that in response to that developed a case accountability system, implemented it in the 2013-14 school year, and that system, give or take a few indicators and tweaking, has been in place for the last 4 years. So in 2015, we got some additional bill that was passed from the House that added case as part of the accountability system, the 5-domain system. And so with that House bill, it requires districts and all of our campuses to choose 3 of the case areas to be included in state accountability ratings. I do think it's important to note we still have to implement, monitor, evaluate, and rate all 9 case areas. It's just that 3 of those areas are included in our state accountability calculations. And so I'd like to talk about those 9 areas. The first 8 that you'll see on the screen, those 8 areas we are required by statute to rate with either an exemplary, recognized, acceptable, or unacceptable rating, and those are fine arts, wellness and PE, community and parental involvement, 21st century workforce development, second language acquisition, digital learning, dropout prevention, our GT program, And then that ninth case area is compliance with statutory reporting requirements. We are required by statute to only rate that either a yes or no. Either yes, we're in compliance with what we're required to post, or no, we're not. And so that's the guidance that we've received from the state related to case accountability. So as I mentioned, and we've shared a few times in board meetings, we are transitioning, pending no legislative changes in the next few weeks, to a 5-domain system. And highlighted there on the right side of the screen and on your slide is Domain 5. That's going to comprise 10% of the overall rating, and it will also be a letter grade itself, okay, for the district and for all of our campuses. And so what are those big key considerations that we have? What we know right now is that we still are going to monitor, rate, and evaluate those 9 case areas like we have been doing since the 2013-14 school year. But we know now, beginning in 2018, we must select 3 of those 9 areas for inclusion in our state accountability calculations. And we do know that those letter grades become 10% of our district and campus overall state accountability rating. So with that information, knowing we've had a system in play for 4 years, we felt very strongly that it was time to look at our system, review and revise if necessary, ensure that it was aligned to board goals. Knowing we had a newly developed and newly adopted profile of a graduate, it was important to us to make sure that our case accountability system reflected all of those values and goals. So what we did is we formed a 2018 Case Accountability Committee. And that committee began meeting beginning in January of 2017. We have over 20 committee members, all from the district and campus leadership levels, and representative of all the 9 case areas. And so we've met a minimum 2 hours a month. The first thing we started with is really looking at the system that we had currently, that is currently our system for this year as well. We started to look at other school district systems. You know, were there things there that we valued that might be something that we could kind of borrow and improve? And I will say that a lot of what we saw, we knew that we were headed in the right direction, and we didn't really borrow from a lot of others. We were very proud of our work. We stand behind that. We did survey stakeholders as well, to help us form and develop and revise the system. And then we also began in February with 9 subcommittees, 1 subcommittee for each case area, that developed and kind of refined and finalized the indicators that you will see on that draft system. So in April, we finalized that draft system. And beginning in early May this month, we started to solicit feedback of the draft system to all of our campus principals. We presented last week to the Academic Advisory Council for their feedback, and then we're here in front of the Board of Trustees. It's important for us to make sure that we get feedback from a variety of stakeholders. So beginning really the end of May, very first week of June, we are required to submit that case accountability system to the Texas Education Agency, as well as the indicators that we have selected for every one of our campuses and the district. So as we began to look at what we had in place, our board goals, the profile of the graduate, we knew this really was the first step towards local district accountability. So we were guided by those board goals and tightly aligned, we believe, to the FBISD profile of a graduate. The committee felt very strongly to transition to a rubric format, and you'll see that reflected. It's kind of a continuum of growth is what our idea was, that aligned with not only the T-test, but the T-PES appraisal systems. So we did adopt that rubric format, and we felt very strongly that all of the indicators within each of the areas should be clear and easy to understand and to apply at the campus and district level. So those were kind of the big picture considerations as we were working through development this spring. And so we did provide a draft case accountability system. I do apologize, it's got a lot of, it takes a lot of trees to run those copies, but I want to highlight something before I move on in the presentation, which is this template here, what you see on the screen, is the guidance we received from the state related to case accountability, meaning we were told you must rate these 9 areas and you must rate using these ratings: exemplary, recognized, acceptable, unacceptable. Everything else in that draft document is Fort Bend ISD developed. And so the reason I point that out is this took a lot of work to get to where we were, because this is what the statute really provides for us. So with that draft system, we also had the decision to make of what choice areas are we going to include for Domain 5 for all of our campuses in the district. And so district administration reviewed the board goals, reviewed the profile of a graduate. We looked at stakeholder feedback, and the decision was made. It made sense to be aligned strategically from the district to the campus level for that continuous improvement cycle. And so all campuses, what we are planning to submit to TEA in June is that all campuses and the district will be rated on these 3 areas that you see up on the screen for inclusion in Domain 5, and those are community and parental involvement, wellness and PE, and digital learning. And so for next steps, what I mentioned is the draft that you were provided last week is a working document. So we are continuing to revise that document based on feedback from stakeholders. We have in our timeline to finalize and communicate that system for planned 2017-18 implementation with input from the Board of Trustees, the Academic Advisory Council, as well as district and campus leaders. And then we are planning to report in compliance with TEA requirements. We will report not only the 2018 system and the indicators that we will be using for each of the campuses and the district, but we will also be turning in our 2017 case accountability ratings. So those are kind of our next steps. As far as it relates to 2018 case accountability. And I'd like to take a minute to just kind of say a public thank you to all of the committee members that served. We had, I would say, well over 20 hours of meetings to really get to where we're at. Dr. Indelicato was instrumental. A few of my team members, Mary Scott, who is here tonight, helped lead that process. And so I'm very grateful and proud for what we have. But that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions related to 2018 accountability development.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. We appreciate the presentation and what was provided to us in advance. And we would also like to thank the committee members and all the hard work of everyone who worked to put this together and make it Fort Bend ISDs. So thank you. Do we have questions from the trustees? Mrs. James.
Well, I'm going to apologize because I didn't see the draft that has the rubric in it. So I guess that is in a different memo list than the one I downloaded. So I'm sorry. I apologize to the group because I'm kind of lost. So.
Okay, so why don't we, if you download it and have questions, then Dr. Evans, will you be willing to
Absolutely.
sit with Mrs. James and talk to her after? Are there questions from the other trustees at the moment? Mr. Burdine.
I just wanted to make a comment. I liked on page 6 on the development considerations, of course, the rubric format to ensure a continuum of growth. I think that we all agree that's extremely important, and I just wanted to communicate that I felt the same way, and thanks for your hard work. I look forward to looking at the rubric. I didn't see it as well, but I will look at that, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. Mr. Rice.
Nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rice. Okay, thank you, Dr. Evans. We appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have more questions in the days to come.
I do apologize. If there weren't so many trees involved, I would have brought copies, but you live and you learn. I will be prepared next time.
That's okay. We'll take a look at it, and this is going to be a work in progress for us to study it anyway. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item is our Naviance program evaluation update. Dr. Dupree.
Yes, ma'am. So this is going to be a return to Ms. Martinez and Dr. Evans. So we'll let them get on right into the update on the Naviance program evaluation. Beth?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Dupree. So in 2013, the board approved the purchase of Naviance as a college and career planning platform to assist the district in meeting statutory law requirements that were associated with the 78th legislative session in 2003 and with House Bill 5. And at that time, administration planned for Naviance to serve as the platform that would ensure effective student planning in a way that would enable our students to obtain a holistic view of their high school and college program and that would align with their career interests so they would make well-informed endorsement decisions. That's what we came to you with years ago in the board recommendation. Following board approval, administration implemented Naviance at all secondary campuses. That's 11 high schools and 14 middle schools. And all of the components, or multiple components within Naviance, were also implemented at the same time at all secondary schools. And truly, in retrospect, with hindsight being 2020, this was too broad in scope, too many campuses and too many functions at the same time. So despite the urgency to make this tool available for all secondary students, we should have rolled Naviance out as a pilot. It would have been more effective at that point. As a result, we've learned many lessons along the way. Specifically, at that time, Naviance was implemented in the district to provide equitable access to college, career, and course planning tools, to assist district and campus staff in monitoring and accessing data associated with college applications like scholarships and completion of four-year plans, to provide students with tools and to set their post-secondary goals and create actionable plans, and to provide a communication platform for collaboration between campus staff, parents, and students. I want to point out that as we reviewed the data associated with the program evaluation, we identified many opportunities for improvement. Primarily, the data reveal the need to equip staff to better support students and parents in the planning process and the use of Naviance. Naviance program goals need to be focused on specific and measurable student outcomes, which reflect skill, knowledge, and goal attainment. Moving forward, we need to closely monitor and support the use of Naviance, collect that data, and ensure that we're collecting not only quantitative data, but also qualitative data to make improvements in the implementation, the use, and the training and support of our end users. And basically, regardless of the platform that we use, the most critical component of this is our students having meaningful planning opportunities, and we need to develop and support an effective process to ensure that we do have a comprehensive and meaningful planning process to guide our students. Tonight, Dr. Evans will provide the findings of the Naviance program evaluation, which was completed by Hanover Research. We have with us, of course, as you know, Deanna Saavedra, our Chief Academic Officer, and Steve Shields is here as well. He's the Director of Counseling and Post-Secondary Readiness, and they're here to provide clarification, answer questions, or address any concerns you may have. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Evans again to report on the program evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Beth, and good evening again, Board of Trustees and Dr. Debris. I'm going to present, this is the second and final pilot program evaluation that we committed to you, the board in May of 2016, that we would complete this school year. And so what I'd like to start with first is just an introduction to Naviance. So Naviance is defined as a comprehensive K-12 college and career readiness solution that helps districts and schools align student strengths and interests to post-secondary goals, which are intended to improve student outcomes and connect learning to life. I'd like to highlight these are some but not all of the key features of Naviance. Strengths Explorer, that's one that typically our 8th grade students will take. Career Cluster is a feature that begins in 6th grade. There's also a college planner, a course planner, college match search engine, scholarship clearinghouse, eDocs submission ability. It can be used as a communication platform between all of those applicable stakeholders, including students, counselors, parents, teachers. It also has a survey tool embedded in the platform. And so we've highlighted some of the Naviance program goals as what we intended when we brought Naviance into the district. And so we intended for it to provide equitable access to college, career, and course planning. It was intended to assist district and campus staff in monitoring and accessing data associated with college applications, scholarship, and completion of four-year plans. We intended for it to provide students with tools to set post-secondary goals and create actionable plans. And we intended for it to provide a communication platform to increase collaboration between campus staff, students, and parents. And so what we intended here for the purpose of the program evaluation is to answer the following two research questions, which were to determine how effective the Naviance program was or is in promoting college and career readiness throughout the district, as well as defining what improvements are needed to the Naviance program implementation. And for the purpose of the analysis, implementation began with the Naviance platform during the 2014-15 school year. So it's been implemented for 2 full academic years. We're in the middle, or really kind of rounding out now, the 3rd year of implementation. And just as a side note, the contract was renewed for 1 additional year to carry the contract through to the 2017-18 school year. So the data and methodology that was used for Hanover Research, it was a mixed methods approach, which means that we included an analysis of quantitative and qualitative data, including some Naviance usage data that was pulled from the Naviance platform. We also looked at 1 year of college enrollment data. We included a cost analysis data. That was one of the things that we committed to the Board of Trustees that we will include in every evaluation that we do. And we surveyed a variety of stakeholders, which included our students at every level that were main users from grade 6 to 12. Also our alumni we surveyed, parents we surveyed, and campus staff, which was primarily our counselors and our college and career readiness advisors. One thing I do want to caution before I move on into the analysis is we did have a low survey response rate. You'll see in Hanover's findings that it was a very small percentage of respondents. However, we looked at that data and felt that it was representative of some of the feedback we'd already heard about the program and some of the things that we knew and some of the additional data pieces, which is why we determined that it was appropriate to move forward with the survey responses that we had. So with that, I'd like to start with the program impact analysis. So on average, students access Naviance approximately 3.6 times per year in both years. I believe the initial goals from the department was that our students access Naviance on average 3 times a year. So that did exceed the initial goal there. It was higher than our usage, higher than the national average of student Naviance usage of 3 visits per student per year. We did see that our staff end users had a much higher usage rate than students, with an average of approximately 110 visits per user in 2015, and it increased slightly to 120 visits per user. But if you will, I'd like to direct your attention to figure 2.2 that's on the slide. This is also page 10 of the evaluation document. You will see that our parent visits are very, very low. We don't even see an average of 1 login per parent reflected there per year. So I did want to highlight a little bit of the usage, but from the student perspective, we did exceed that the first 2 years. Okay, figure 3.5, that's on page 17 of the evaluation document. This highlights the features that were used, and this was based on student responses. So like I mentioned, we did have a very small response rate, but what we saw is our grades 6 and 7, our middle school students, were the least likely to use the platform. And then that varied depending on the grade level, which some of that makes sense based on the program offerings and certain things. For example, scholarships might not be a place that our middle school students would visit until it became more relevant for their school and college career. Figure 3.10 that I've highlighted is on page 21 of your evaluation document. This is a comparison of stakeholder satisfaction with the Naviance. And so what you'll see there is it's kind of, they've got a heated variance applied there. So you see the darker green means that those are the stakeholder groups that reported the strongest satisfaction, with those being the counselors and the registrars. And so that aligns with what we've seen with the usage, that those were our stakeholder groups that had the highest usage. That we also saw that our high school students were the least likely to report satisfaction with Naviance. The program cost data I've highlighted as well, and this is figure A1. It's on page 34 of your document. Beginning in 2015, the total cost per student was $5.18 to implement Naviance. However, it did decline in 2016. It rose slightly in 2017, but we'll kind of taper off in the 2018-2019 school years if we continue with the Naviance platform. So to highlight some of the conclusions, there are many in document, but for the purpose of today's presentation, I did feel it was important to highlight some of these pieces, which is students and counselors and our CC advisors are consistently using Naviance. The majority of students have completed the required Naviance tasks as outlined. Overall, our Fort Bend student post-secondary enrollment declined between the 2013-14 school year and the 2014-15 school year. However, our Naviance users have reported mixed levels of satisfaction with the program. Many parents did report Naviance is a useful tool for helping guide their child to his or her next level of education. And our guidance counselors and high school registrars are generally satisfied with the Naviance program. When we looked at themes as far as our survey feedback, we did identify some very clear areas for improvement. Related to program-specific challenges, our stakeholders replied that the interface was challenging to navigate through and recommended some substantial changes to the interface. That's certainly feedback we will provide to Naviance. They did report that the transcript features, as well as the letter of recommendations, proved to be challenging. For your planning, I believe there was some confusion there, as well as middle school use. That is certainly an area we can improve on. We also got a lot of feedback on implementation recommendations from our stakeholders. A lot of our staff requested additional trainings for the benefit and access, as well as with our parents and students. They requested additional time to learn what Naviance has to offer, and increased tech support, which I believe is related somewhat to the interface and somewhat just simply to allowing time during the school day to commit to accessing the program. So what does that mean as far as recommendations? One of the things that's important, and it's a big takeaway, is Naviance is potentially meeting the goals set forth in the scope of work in terms of logins and usage, but a large proportion of our stakeholders report frustration with program implementation as well as the program itself, including the interface. So in order to improve these outcomes, it is critical that Fort Bend ISD work with Naviance to ensure that it meets the needs for all of our intended stakeholders. And so some of the pieces that Steve and his group are preparing as far as next steps are increasing awareness of the Naviance platform and all of the tools for stakeholders. We know we need to do a better job of expanding training opportunities for our key stakeholders. We heard a lot of feedback from our stakeholders as far as expanding and differentiating the scope and sequence for activities at each grade level for our students, and developing protocols for individual planning, which was one that we heard a lot of feedback, which fully utilizes the Naviance platform. So those are some of the big pieces. That concludes my presentation, if there are any questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. We appreciate the work and the presentation. Questions from the trustees. Ms. Helliger.
Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate the presentation. It was very timely, especially for me. Kristen and I had recently had some conversations around our graduates in the district and some personal things that even from my middle school child who's going into transition into high school. So I do have a question around the alumni per se. I know they use it for, my oldest son uses it a lot for transcripts, but is he able to use it for any other resources available to him to use Naviance for any kind of career planning and any of those kinds of things?
After graduating from high school, I have Steve Shields here that can answer that. And one note I didn't mention earlier, but the alumni, it's challenging for us to survey alumni after so many years out of the system. So that is one caveat, which we know might have contributed to the low response rate from our alumni.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Dupree. Yes, so they do have access to the tools, and one of the things that I'm looking into for also that Ms. James asked was how long is that available for, and so I'm not sure if it's indefinitely, if it's 5 years. So that's something that we can find the answer for and get back to you. But the tools are available, like the resume builder, the career interest inventories.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm not aware, so I can help guide because I know I've talked to several students, former students in our district who are, they initially thought they were going to school, and, well, life has changed for them, and so they're still young enough shortly after school, and so they're still trying to find some guidance with that, and not really understanding where there is to where they can get some resources. Just like any, when I graduated from college, if I needed some career development, those kinds of things, I had access to my college campus's career development center. So this is kind of what I was thinking in my mind. And to your recommendations about increasing the awareness of the Naviance platform and tools for stakeholders, I think that's very important, because I think each school does it and uses it, implements it differently. And I recently just had asked the same question about, trying to figure out when was the last time my own son logged into the system to see, how well is he using the particular tool. I had an opportunity to sit in a math class a couple weeks ago, and I saw them, part of the math class was teaching them about college loans and just different things about preparing for college, rather, financing college. It was in the math class. And I see something like this being as part of a curriculum, a class, class day, several times throughout the school year, where they have to work through this system, not necessarily meet with a counselor to do this, but I don't know if that's being done or not, but to make sure that our kids are being engaged with this process, and it's just not like a one time of the year kind of exercise that we're necessarily marking. And I know the statistic says 3.6, but I'm not sure what those pieces are, but that's just my feedback. So, because I'm living it right now, so I have.
I can just make a quick comment that we're excited about the potential of Schoology also to embed some Naviance resources in there, and also that there's technology specialists within each curriculum area to help us, because we're also looking for ways to just increase that contact with it and usage. The more students are comfortable with it, the more they're going to access it and see the potential of it. So,
Thank
I
you.
think one of the things that I'd like to mention, as you were sharing your comments and your feedback, number one, thank you very much for that feedback, because coming from a parent, it's very important for us to kind of listen to the voice of parents and how they're engaging and what tools they need to engage with their students. And I think that's what our ultimate goal is, to really try to develop that partnership. I think one of the other pieces of the recommendation that is important for us to note is that as kids move along the continuum to plan their journey to post-secondary readiness, whether it's a career, whether it's junior college or a four-year college, or whether it's the military, that we begin to differentiate at what points during that process are kids going to be the most engaged in and interested in terms of, so if we have all of these tools available for us in the platform, at what point along the continuum are certain tools more important for kids to begin to engage in? Because when we try to engage them in all of those tools, then they get lost in that whole system. So I think that's part of the work that we're working on moving forward, is to look at in 6th grade, what's the most important thing for them to engage in? 7th grade, 8th grade. And I think communicating and messaging to parents in that way is also going to be something that's important. We've got a task force that we've put together, and I believe that we are looking to add some students to that task force so that we can bring in that student voice so that they can let us know what are the things that they need, along with adding some parents to that task force. And then I think the final thing would be for us to really work through the process under the umbrella of college and career readiness. Here is college and career readiness, and this is what it means. And here are all the tools that we have available to us, Naviance being one of those, to help us prepare our students and along that journey. So I think that even our communication and our messaging is something that we can tighten up and we can really work on in terms of improving the process, because Naviance is a piece of the process for college and career readiness and helping our students to develop in that area.
Thank you, Ms. Saavedra. Thank you, Ms. Helliger. Mr. George?
As usual, it is a good presentation. I really appreciate, because this is something very close to my heart, and we had this discussion many times, and I'm glad we have a complete analysis on this program. And I do have personal experience with this program. My daughter, one day, I remember last year, she came and said, I figured it out, what I'm good at, what I'm going to do. And I'm like, what happened? So the point is, she said, healthcare, education, or transportation. So I thought it was a 7th grader telling me something like that is pretty amazing. And since then, I always ask every student I interact with, what are you going to do with your life? And so many times, as we all know, many students don't know what they're going to do. And so I thought all these key features are so important, but I picked number 1 to get a direction. And so it's an amazing program. I know it, and so many students are helped, or so many students getting help through this. But at the same time, I see that the data showing that very few parents are getting involved. So I think that's an area where hopefully maybe when we have open houses and things of that nature, promoting this, and I don't think any parent can say I don't care about these issues. Many parents struggle with it, and also I think, and I'm glad we are recognizing that we have room for improvement, and we all know that. And the last thing is, there is anybody in charge of this program at a campus level, like a particular person 100% responsible for implementing this program at particular campus? Do we have?
Yeah, so we, it's a collaboration between the lead counselor and the CCR advisor. So there's some components to it that are more guidance oriented, and some components that are more college application and college centered. So it's a collaboration between the two, but those two are the two that are responsible for the implementation of it.
Who is counselor?
The lead counselor.
Okay.
And then the lead counselor at the middle school level and also at the high school level, and in collaboration with the CCR advisor. So those are the two primary owners.
Okay. I mean, again, I come from a marketing background, and I always believe there should be one person responsible for it. Of course, they delegate the responsibility from there so that you could hold that person accountable, because I think this is an amazing thing we have, and it can change lives. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. George. Mrs. James.
Thank you both very much for the presentation and the update, and I read the report, and I appreciated that. So one of the things I asked a lot about is understanding the goals of what we're trying to do with this, and so I think I read your response and I heard a little bit about that, and in your report tonight I heard about aligning it with our profile of a graduate and what our district goals are. So I think that's definitely the right idea, and I know the board's talked a lot about students owning their own learning and owning their own progress through our system, and so this seems to me like a tool that could really be used for that. Kind of like some of my colleagues have spoken of. So in a way, that's really exciting. I recognize from the report that there's a lot of implementation challenges, communication challenges, and frankly some misunderstandings. My student would get assigned to do a particular project as part of the scope and sequence activities, but it wasn't useful to her in that sense, and so it became a task, but it wasn't integrated. It was a side task. It wasn't integrated into her regular life, which is, I think, what the point of this is trying to integrate some of the things that they need to do. So while I recognize it's kind of eased the burden in some of the planning for the counselors and surveys to help us get kids in the right pathway and things like that. I think that some of the student feedback and maybe alumni feedback that's negative is because it's not really aligned with their real life, and it just becomes a series of hurdles to go through. Even even getting recommendations and transcripts became not unreliable. And for students that are applying to college, there's a deadline, and it's got to be that day, that week, and I can say we personally experienced some frustrations by the program or the interface or whatever it was. Just didn't work, and so it didn't help. So hence I asked the question about the scope and sequence, and I appreciate what Ms. Holliger said, because I think that's exactly right. If we set it up as part of the routine, then it's easy to use. It's it becomes part of the curriculum, then rather than just as kind of a side task to complete an activity. And I certainly like that idea a lot better. But I guess I'd like to see a little bit more about how we can integrate the program goals with the district goals, and it's not all that clear to me. I see potential for that. But I just don't, to me, number of logins is interesting, but it really doesn't tell me about productivity. So I decided that would be my request. Thank you for the report. Thanks for doing the research, and thanks for bringing it to us in a way that we could follow and understand it.
I would like to say in response, I appreciate you sharing that experience with your daughter, because what you touched on is exactly one of the pieces that we identified throughout the evaluation. Is although we exceeded those logins from a quantity perspective, were those 3.6 logins per student on average per year of quality. And that's really important for us to dive into in the next couple of years of program implementation. Is if they're logging in 3.6 times on average and they're not really getting the full benefit of the platform, and they feel like it's just a task they have to do that's not really related to their path, then are we really truly using it the way that we intend and that will fully benefit our students? So I appreciate you sharing that, because that certainly aligns with where we need to go.
So just to take that one step further, which is why I asked about the alumni question that Ms. Holliger also asked, was because, for example, one of the tasks for the juniors and seniors is to create a resume. It's part of the scope and sequence for them to do that. So they go and do that, but then they couldn't extract it, they couldn't edit it. So now, here, as a district alumni, my daughter's trying to get her resume out so she can get a summer job. She doesn't know how to do it, or she can't do it, or so good thing she had that in Word because she can then use it, right? So it's fine if we have that as a task, but if it's no use and they have to actually do it on another platform to make it useful to them, then we're just creating frustration, not helping the kids. So I think you understand, and so thank you for working towards alignment.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Thank you, Dr. Evans. I have some personal experiences that I will share offline. So. Okay, we are now going to convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapters 551, and those listed in the agenda, and for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized by law. We are now convened in closed session.